Will China cancel the 2022 Winter Olympics, better known as the Genocide Games? It should. The Games should have never gone to China in the first place, but the world showed no spine. All it could offer was half-hearted diplomatic boycotts. Now, China's homemade virus may do what superpowers failed to do: derail the Genocide Games. They're scheduled to begin in 3 weeks from now, and the Wuhan virus is unrelenting. The Omicron variant is spreading fast. It has left China's zero COVID policy in shreds. One more Chinese city has been put under lockdown, the city of Tianjin in the Hebei province, the fourth city to be locked down in 2 weeks. A handful of cases were reported there on Tuesday. For that, all 14 million residents of Tianjin have been locked up in their homes. This is a bit of a panic reaction. Tianjin is located just 134 kilometers from Beijing, China's capital and the host for the 2022 Winter Olympics. Has Omicron reached Beijing too? It's hard to say, but given its transmissibility, it can only be a matter of time. Let me show you some images from Beijing. These are the venues for the Olympic Games, sealed behind giant metal fences. China has created an impenetrable bubble, or so it hopes. It stretches 200 kilometers across Beijing. For the next 3 weeks, everyone associated with the Winter Olympics will have to stay inside this bubble. From hotel staff to volunteers to translators to cleaners, all of them, they've all been locked up inside this bubble. No one is allowed to leave. You see, this has become a matter of prestige for Beijing. In 2008, when they hosted their first Olympic Games, Xi Jinping was in charge. The event cemented his political position, and then he went on to become the president of China. Now, in 2022, he's presiding over another Olympic event, and this one may spell the crash of his geopolitical position. China is seen as global enemy number one. The truth about the origin of the Wuhan virus is still not out. China refuses to give access or share data. There is no telling what goes behind the Great Firewall. So when China locks up more than 30 million people because of a few hundred cases, the world wonders if it's hiding something more sinister. Let me show you another video. China has set up quarantine camps like these for the infected. They look more like concentration camps, some say. Endless rows of metal boxes with suspected Wuhan virus patients inside. Then we have another video. It shows hundreds of buses carrying people to quarantine camps in China. According to some accounts, if there's one Wuhan virus case in an apartment, all residents of the building are packed into buses and sent to quarantine. Those who refuse to go are treated like this, manhandled by health officials and dragged out of their homes if they do not comply. China's crackdown on patients and people is not new. We've seen multiple instances in the last 2 years. But this time, there is more at stake: the reputation of Xi Jinping, the chance to sports wash the genocide in Xinjiang. No wonder China is going to extreme lengths to secure the Games. How's the rest of the world faring? Mulling another extreme. They're talking about living with COVID. The cases continue to rise. We'll begin with India. The active case count in India has touched 1.1 million, meaning there are more than 1 million COVID positive patients in India as we speak. In the last 24 hours, more than 247,000 new cases were reported. That's a 27% jump in 1 day. What about deaths? 380 in a day. The trajectory does not look good as India readies for elections in 5 states. Prime Minister Modi held a virtual meeting with chief ministers of various states today to discuss ways to contain the surge. In the United States, a new study has established what most experts have been saying. Omicron will cause fewer hospitalizations, it says. This is based on data of 70,000 patients in California. But the findings of the study do not match America's reality. Hospitalization numbers have broken previous records here. This is according to the U.S. Department of Health. More than 140,000 Americans are in hospital. This is the highest since January 2021. It doesn't help that America's top health expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says that Omicron is likely to, quote-unquote, infect everybody. He said the risk of severe illness remains low. In neighboring Mexico, there's a sharp surge in cases. At least 44,000 cases were reported this morning. That's a new daily record for this country, 44,000 a day. In Brazil, too, Omicron has become the dominant variant. And the president's statements do not help. Jair Bolsonaro has called Omicron a welcome variant, one that could spell the end of the pandemic. His remarks have triggered some strong responses. The WHO's emergency director has issued a statement. He has said that no virus that kills people is welcome. He's right. Meanwhile, in France, the government is clashing with the education sector. Schools have been shut down. Teachers have hit the streets. Some have even resigned. They're upset with what they call the negligence of health authorities. They say cases are soaring in schools and the government's measures are falling woefully short. Reports say this is the biggest education strike in France in recent history. Trade unions expect 75% of primary school teachers and 62% of secondary school teachers to quit in the days ahead.
It is essentially disdain from the government that we teachers are feeling. A disdain related to a complete denial of the reality. On one hand, we are telling them our demands, calling them for help, telling them what we would want. And on the other hand, the government ignores all of that and tells us that they know what the reality is and that everything is fine, or that things will be sorted out, or that the strategy has just changed and everything will be better. We cannot accept that.
Meanwhile, vaccine makers continue to chase variants. After Pfizer said that their Omicron jab would be ready by March. AstraZeneca has now said that in its early trial data, they found that a third dose helps against Omicron. It apparently generates a higher antibody response. The fact is, this virus has spawned more studies than variants. People are frustrated, disillusioned, and just tired of the constantly changing rules. We've all been there, we relate with you. But then we see what's happening to people in China and we don't feel so bad about our situation. You may have seen the story too. A woman went on a blind date in the city of Zhengzhou. It was a date for a home-cooked dinner. She went to the man's house. Suddenly a lockdown was imposed and she was stuck in his house for 4 days. She posted her ordeal on social media. Now she's trending in China. I'm not sure what to make of this story. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.